call the departmental meeting to order, please. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore? Aye. Trustee Weisenberg? Aye. Trustee Gett?
Present.
Trustee Kazan?
Here. Aye.
Trustee Mariscal?
Present.
Trustee Carter?
Present.
Okay, good to see everyone. We have a quorum. We would be at item 4, approval of the minutes from the departmental meeting Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I do. Any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we'd be at comments from the audience. Our rules state that you can have 5 minutes, so if you could keep it at 5 minutes or under, we'd appreciate it. Come forward and give your name and address, please. And before you start, sir, I know we have a couple of appeal. We have one appeal tonight. Are you anyone represented by counsel tonight? Any counsel here? Okay, neither side. All right. Go ahead, Tom.
My name is Tom Buckler. I live at 4611 North Miller Avenue. And the reason I'm here tonight is just to talk about the variance with the Donarskis and the fence that they've put up. I just wanted to say that as it's come up, I've spent a lot of time, going by it. I drive by it, walk my dog, drive the car by it all the time. I think it fits nicely in our neighborhood. We have a lot of wrought iron fences. I have one myself. Up and down Miller, there's a lot of fences that look nice like that. So I think that it fits in the neighborhood nicely. They've done a nice job with it. I also think, I know it was an issue. I was trying to look at also, is it a safety issue? And as I've looked at it, it's actually, there's really good line of sight through the fence and around it. So I really don't think it's a safety issue. And even if it was set back even today, I don't think it's a safety issue. So even if you set it back a little bit more, I think it wouldn't be a safety issue. So that was my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Brian Gerard. I live at 4320 North Miller Avenue. I'll just echo a lot of the same things Tom said. I live 2 doors down. I go by the fence every day. I use that intersection quite a bit, and the one just up from that. You look at the existing fences that are on Miller. I think all of them are very, very tasteful, fit the neighborhood, and I see that this is in alignment with what is already there. So I think it's very, very tasteful. It isn't a safety issue at all. I drive it frequently. I don't see it as a safety issue. So just wanted to echo some of the same things.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Maloof, come up.
Is the time for testimony now versus when the appeal process goes? Is it before the hearing?
You can come forward if you want to.
Or after?
Yes. Come forward to the mic so everyone can hear it.
So the question is testimony now for the appeal versus after, when you take the votes?
Now.
Okay, now. Dan Maloof, 4423 Miller, Village of Peoria Heights, Peoria, Illinois. So thank you for this time and this effort. We were here at the ZBA hearing on the last go-around. When I say we, is several of the neighbors in the neighborhood that were present can't be here tonight because they're out of town, and the schedule of the hearing just didn't fit in with their summer vacation. So, as you recall, at the ZBA hearing, and I'm a former member of the ZBA, I was actually chairman for a time with many of you, they lost 100%. They got there was no contest. So, in that regard, I have some handouts I'd like to give you that go along with some of the things I'm going to talk about. Some of the handouts are from a civil engineer from Austin Engineering, which details the scope of where the fence resides. Some of it has to do with real estate values and the hindrance of this affecting it. Some of it is with testimony from the engineer, and some of it is relating to the ordinance itself. Well, what does the ordinance say? Does it say front yard fences are allowed? I don't think so. So sadly, the Donarskis go through the process, they build the fence, whether it's their contractor's fault or not, they put it up. So if they'd have gone through the process being a ZBA hearing, and they would have been denied, because they were denied, I guess the question resolves around one of this. Would you put the fence up if you were denied at the ZBA? We spent the $3,500? Probably not. I have my doubts. Anybody would put a fence up if they were turned down without a permit. Needless to say, that happened. So we oppose it for several reasons, and they're all listed within the ordinance that exists today, and they're highlighted on page 2 or 3. What are they? Public safety, number one. That's dramatized by the drawing that Austin Engineer put in. You cannot impede the visibility on a city street on a corner lot. Number two, we think the fence is out of character with the neighborhood. Well, I guess that's debatable, but we think it is. Number three, it's not allowed. The ordinance prohibits fences in front yards. That's highlighted in the ordinance. We feel it'll affect their value of their real estate and our value because the property is now stigmatized. See the letter from one of the Peoria's professional real estate experts. We think it sets a dangerous precedent, not only for this situation, but anybody else that has a corner lot that wants to put any type of fence up. There's no hardship. There's no topographical hardship. There's no drainage hardship. There's no hardship other than it's a corner lot and they don't have a backyard. Well, I'm sorry, they don't have a backyard per se. But be that as it may, I think there's a solution. And it begs to the following. I guess it's better in the Peoria Heights to ask for forgiveness than permission. I guess that's the standard now, because that's what you're voting on tonight. Whether or not it's okay to just do it without going through the regular process. We were denied the process. If they'd have come in, gotten a permit, gotten an application, we'd have come in and voiced our opinion at the ZBA instead of after they put the fence up. Okay, it didn't happen. So in closing, what we think is best is take the fence down. Take the fence down, have their contractor pay, since he's the one who said he put it up without a permit by mistake. He admitted it at the ZBA, so he should be responsible to reimburse them for their funds. So what's the solution? If you have a dog and you want a dog run, put an invisible fence up. They're wireless, they're half as much money, and you can have the entire property encompassed, front, back, side. So that's what our proposal is just to have it removed, save the money, turn it back into the way it was. Don't set a precedent, don't cause a public safety issue, and don't cause any more strife within the neighborhood and future neighborhoods, or else you're just going to be back here again, over and over again. So thank you. I'm here to answer any questions about my handouts or any questions. I'm not sure if Mike came from Austin Engineering or not, but we have a couple other neighbors here that would like to speak up, perhaps. If not, I'll close my remarks. Thank you once again for your service. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Can I ask him a question?
Certainly.
I have a question. So when you say that it's in danger or the fence that is there, why do you think it's so dangerous?
It's in your right-of-way.
How is it? Okay.
It's in your right-of-way, not their right-of-way, the city's right-of-way. The fences are prohibited in city right-of-way,
Okay, I understand that.
and you can't see through it. So if you look...
You can see through it,
No, you
though.
can't. If you pull into Paula Dixon's driveway, who is south of that home, and you try to peer back out of her driveway and peer through it, you are blocked. You're blocked by the tree, and you're blocked by the slats in the fence.
I don't see that.
Okay.
I drove by there and you can clearly see through.
Plus, there's the
fence.
crown in the road. If you looked at the
4 feet.
example that Austin wrote, it shows clearly where the line of sight has to be. The line of sight cannot be impeded. The line of sight cannot be impeded, and you can't build a fence on city right-of-way. Privately.
I get the ordinance, I get all the ordinance part of it, other than the safety part of it is where I don't see where there's a black iron fence that you can obviously see through it. Maybe the tree would be more obstructive than the fence that is, but, I get that part of it, but, okay.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
my question. I
All
have
right.
more as we go along, but.
Dan, I'll comment on the public safety issue. Obviously, this is a board decision, but I will, as the police chief, comment on the public safety issue. To me, it is not a public safety issue as far as the visibility goes, and I went again by there today. I also traveled on Marietta, straight up, and that completely blocks your vision with northbound traffic. So if we're using that same rationale, I think there are even worse intersections right off Miller, but as far as the Donarskis, I can see through the fence. It's not an issue as far as the police department's concerned, and I think the other reason I'll come to that conclusion is that it's not a heavily traveled street. So, that's, but as far as everything else you've outlined, the ordinance is what the ordinance is, so I understand that. But as far as the public safety aspect of it, that's where we stand.
So I guess that if they put bushes in there and you can't see through it, then I guess my argument stands.
Well, that's exactly what's happened on Marietta.
Right.
Is that fence, you cannot see through that fence.
That's
It does have greens, it has foliage, other
Right.
things. So that's exactly, you cannot see through it at all. I can't tell you what they're going to do in the future as far as what they're
That's
planning.
correct.
I'm just making the statement on what I saw today.
All right,
So,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you.
Okay, who else?
Hello, I'm Tessie Buckler. I live at 4611 North Miller Avenue. I wasn't actually planning on speaking, but I just wanted to speak to something that Mr. Maloof said. I'm a member of the zoning board, so I was here for the discussion with the zoning board. He implied that there was it failed with no support. That actually isn't exactly true. What happened is there was a vote. There was a motion to move the fence back to the property line, and that was actually 50-50. There were 4 votes for, 4 votes against. What happened is we only had 4 members there, and then also the findings of fact. I believe we were in agreement on 5 of them in support of the fence, and I think there were 3, could have been 4, I'm not totally sure, we'd have to look at the minutes, that we were not in favor of, and that's why the motion failed. So I just wanted to make sure you guys realize that the statement that there was no support for the fence was not exactly accurate. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tessie.
I'm Terry Best, and I live at 4420 North Miller Avenue, and I don't have really anything to add to what Dan Maloof said, except that we had a great amount of respect for the zoning commission and the way that they handled themselves, and they really thought about their decision long and hard, and their decision was to take the fence down, and we ask that you respect their decision and respect the neighbors that live in the immediate vicinity that want it taken down. Thanks.
Thank you, Terry.
You got to be quick. Hi, my name is Bill Fulton, and I live at 4527 Miller Avenue. And I also live on a corner lot, And I have a house right across the street from me that has a fence all the way around it, a very nice, tasteful white picket fence that has a lot less visibility in terms of the line of sight than this fence does, which I think is also a very nice and tasteful fence. And I really, the only other thing I want to comment on is I don't think it's a matter of asking for permission or forgiveness. I think if they knew about the ordinance before they built the fence, they would have asked for permission. They didn't. So it's, that's what the council needs to decide. It's kind of what kind of council and what kind of community do we want to be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, get to you next.
Hi, I'm Lori Collins, 4432 North Miller Avenue. And my only comment is this. It's pretty black and white to me. We all get permits. I do a lot of building, I know, and zoning and all the setbacks and everything you need to know. Well, back in 2009, we had a house on Prospect, and it was a corner lot. And unfortunately, I came here to get a permit and was denied the fence. And I said, but I have a dog. And they explained to me the same thing. You're on a corner lot, you have 2 front yards, and it's just plain not allowed. It's not a matter of whether it's pretty, it's not a matter of whether it impedes, it's nothing wrong with the fence. It's just pretty black and white. You have an ordinance for a reason. We also had a house on 4515 North Miller. It has a white picket fence around it. The only reason that fence is allowed there is that because it was before the ordinance came into effect. The same goes for the house on Marietta and Miller, that the judge's house, it's been there, and so he's allowed to keep that. And I'm pretty sure that it's pretty black and white, unfortunately. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, public comment still open. Tessa, you've already been, is there some?
Say one more thing.
Okay.
I forgot to, I'm sorry. I don't want to be annoying. I just want to make sure that we realize that variances are given for fences. Just a couple months ago, we gave a fence for Katie Kim's project on Samuel. She's going to have a front yard wrought iron fence, and we did approve that. So I just want to make sure we're looking at, it's not that variances are never given for front yard fences. We just did that on the zoning board for no hardship. It wasn't a corner lot, but it was in front of her condominium building. So I just want to make sure you guys know all the facts. Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Public comment going once, going twice. Public comments closed. Before we get to old business, there was some questions at the last meeting about one of the bills. So Mike Bailey, I thought I saw you come in. If you give a quick presentation on, update on what you've been working on.
So hi, I'm Mike Bailey, and the mayor asked me to update all of you on what's been happening on the communications front here in the village. To that end, I emailed all of you earlier today with a list of press coverage by various media in town over the last 6 months or so. Virtually all of it positive, I think, reflecting very well on the village. Dealing with media is just a part of what I do, of course, actually a pretty small part. Over the past 6 months, we've developed a communication strategy for the village aimed at bringing greater transparency to local government and engaging the citizenry, which we'd like to think translates to greater trust in local government. We've begun a series of podcast-like segments for the village's Facebook page, which we call Tower Talk, which has introduced residents to decision makers in the village and to the people who deliver their services and to the volunteers behind the scenes who do so much work to promote a high quality of life here. I've been putting together a newsletter we hope to publish quarterly aimed at keeping residents informed about what's happening in their village and how their government operates. And maybe we can do a better job of helping people know about fence ordinances. The mayor wishes to hold 3 town meetings over the next few months, and I've been helping with those. And again, that's to the goal of greater transparency in village government, local government. In May, the Heights hosted Chuck Marone of Strong Towns, which is a national organization dedicated to helping communities grow wisely, to talk about the investments taking place in the Heights and to debate whether or not they fit with the development of principles that define healthy, resilient, smart communities. More than 400 people from around the region attended those events over the course of 3 days. Beyond that, I do a lot of legwork on behalf of the village in due diligence and research on issues and projects and people who may wish to do business here. I do the homework, essentially. I bring more than 3 decades of contacts with leaders at all levels of government and industry who may be in a position to help the Heights be all that it can be. It is fair of you to ask, of course, how all or any of this brings value to the village of Peoria Heights. First, I think we have successfully planted the concept in the public's mind that the Heights is one of the up-and-coming communities in central Illinois. I cannot tell you the number of area mayors who have approached me to marvel at what's happening here and to say how much they'd like a piece of that action. We have raised, no doubt in my mind, we have raised the Heights regional profile. Those media stories I emailed you are being read by many people, some of them pretty influential. Arguably, the $68.5 million the Heights is getting for Galena Road moved up our legislators' priority list because we worked them aggressively on that front and because of their quite justified perceptions that the Heights is a community on the go, poised to do things that produce a return on that very major investment. In terms of economic development, it's not just Kim Blickenstaff, but Katie Kim and Larry Herman and the Hatfields behind Zion Coffee, and Kevin Shields at Heritage Square, and Gary Pearl, and the Hubners at Trefskers, and the folks at St. Jude, and many others who are investing here because they believe it's worth their while. I cannot emphasize this enough. We are not promoting any development or developer specifically, but the Heights generally as a great place to invest. And why is that important? Because without economic development and the jobs it provides and the tax revenue it produces, you can't provide high-quality services or pay your bills or balance your budgets or hold the line on real estate taxes. Communities that are unfriendly to investment and to investors usually pay a price for that in the long term. But in fact, housing is in demand here in Peoria Heights. Businesses want to be here, including those that have been displaced that plan to stay here. People from throughout the region want to play here, and the sales taxes they pay disproportionately support this village government. The people who live here now should feel good about this community. None of that happens by accident. Perceptions become reality, and that's why communications have value. I'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Go ahead if anyone has any questions.
When you said the newsletter, right here.
Yeah.
When you said the newsletter, where do we get the newsletter?
We plan to, once you do that, once we decide to go ahead with it, I'm producing the copy for it now. It would be mailed to every residence in the Heights, every address in the Heights, some 3,600.
And if I may chime in, I mean, in some ways, newsletter may seem old-fashioned to people, but not everyone in the village has social media or computer, so we want to make sure that everyone is connected and...
Or subscribes to the paper, or watches the television news, or pulls up a magazine, or any of those things. I mean, it's just a way to directly communicate with your residents. In a way that's a little more guaranteed to get in their hands because it's mailed to their address.
Right.
So.
Can you take that a step further? One of the things we're working on are neighborhood meetings where we actually leave this building and go out into the neighborhoods. Can you give us an update on where we are with that and what we want to do, what we want to accomplish?
Right, so we've picked a Thursday in August, September, and October at 3 different places, and we're still sort of working out some of those details about where. But I think we're going to be good to go there. And we're going to have, an hour-long session where basically the mayor and whomever else wants to show up from this body can, you make a statement. And mostly it's a listening tour. And you take questions and advice or criticism or praise or whatever from the people that you serve.
Question, Mayor.
Questions? Yes, go ahead, Trustee.
This topic was not on the agenda for tonight.
No, but there was a question asked about the bills, so we're not taking any action. This is an update for you, updating you on questions that were asked previously. Anyone else?
Diane, I think you had a question?
I guess my only concern about it, when I got to looking at some of the bills that we have received from you, I guess was just the amount of what you were asking for per hour, with a max of 50 hours, which to me...
No, a max of $3,000, 30 hours.
How many?
If I work, it's a max of $3,000.
Okay, well, the one,
Right, so that
the
third-
one
that's-
bill I have has 50 hours.
Right, but I was paid $3,000. It's a cap. So no matter how much I work, I can't make any more than $3,000.
Okay, so I guess...
So it was less per hour for that
My question
month.
was,
Yeah.
is that, I know that at the beginning of the year, in part of our budget talks, we had discussed possibly creating another position here, probably right around the amount that we're paying Mike here. So I'm just wondering if we had somebody that could work 40 hours a week for 4 weeks a month, why didn't we go with that position as opposed to somebody that's only giving us 30 hours a month?
Because you're not figuring in benefits, and when you add in wages, add about 40% for benefits, so that's one reason why. And this is all driven by, there are some weeks where we won't use him at all. There are other weeks, when the governor was here last week, he was pretty busy, so.
Yeah, it hasn't always been that maximum amount. I mean, the first quarter of this year, the first 3 months were pretty slow, frankly, and I think my bills have ranged from like $1,200 to $3,000 for the month.
And then also, with the newsletter, does that have to be produced by you? Isn't that something that we could have done internally? You know, don't we get like 6 hours a week or something from Michaela or one of the other girls, as opposed to paying $100 an hour? We could pay whatever we pay the girls. I'm sure isn't anywhere close to $100 an hour to create a newsletter. Just my thought. I mean, yes, our budget is better this year. I totally agree, but we are definitely not swimming in money. There are a lot of things that we want to do and projects that we want to put on for the public, and you know, our trunk or treats and our movies and our things like that. And I know the movies get sponsored by a lot of the businesses, and we appreciate that. But I just think that some of this could be spent, this money could be spent differently, and other people could be stepping in to help out with this, as opposed to paying, like I said, $100 an hour for this type of work. That's just my opinion. And I just, you know, I'm just wondering, like I said, like, have you been working, from what I've seen on the bills, you've been working on the newsletter since November?
Oh, God, no. Last 2 months.
Just in the last 2 months?
Yeah. I know in bits and pieces. I mean, other things have come up, right? I mean, for example, the Strong Towns thing took up a lot of May. I mean, really almost all of May. And we've been working on this capital plan. We've been meeting with legislators. We've been meeting with state agencies. We've been doing a lot of that. We met with some folks today. There's been a lot of work.
So what
that's
will
not
be-
related to the newsletter at all. That newsletter actually has just come up.
What will be in the newsletter that's different than what we're seeing in the Journal Star and hearing on the radio and seeing in the news? Because the Heights is on, you can see it everywhere, you know, you just about, and hear about it everywhere. So what I'm wondering is, with this newsletter, what's going to be different in it that you wouldn't see already being done?
You know, it's about upcoming developments, it's about upcoming projects, it's about meeting and knowing your village board. I suspect quite a few people who live in the Heights can't put a face to the name. And so it helps in that regard. There's a message from the mayor there. There's an explainer on the budget. I can guarantee you don't get an explainer on the budget in the Journal Star. You know, how it works, how it operates, you know, what percentage is sales tax versus property tax, all those sorts of things. It's balanced, whether you're meeting your obligations to taxpayers, all sorts of things. Maybe you're just alerting. There was a story in the Journal Star today about the repaving of Prospect. I mean, you know, those sorts of things, or an uptick in your water bills, or any number of things, frankly, that you wouldn't read about in the Journal Star or hear about on the television news.
Well, not everybody gets the Journal Star, and this makes sure that it gets to every household in the Heights, so.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, right? Not everybody gets the Journal Star, so the newsletter would go to the Heights. But ultimately, you know, that's really your call as a body. you know, I'm a contract worker. I was hired to do this, and, you know, it's your decision as a local government, so.
If I could say real quickly, Mayor, I have been approached about the topic regarding Mike Bailey. So I do think this topic is of public interest, and I think it probably should have been on the agenda, because I know there would have been a few people that showed up regarding this, but I'm having a hard time connecting the dots between being friendly to developers, as is a good thing for the Heights, and using public funding for promotional materials for any developer. And also, I'm 35 years old. I can't tell you how many people my age or younger can even read the Journal-Star. You can't read it online. And subscriptions to newspapers are at historic lows. So I wonder about our bang for the buck by paying someone $100 an hour to work on promotional materials to go into the Journal-Star that won't necessarily.
I think you have a basic misunderstanding, if I may. I'm not writing promotional materials for any project of Kim Blickenstaff's or anybody else. When I write a press release for Kim Blickenstaff about the Atrium Hotel groundbreaking, I charge Kim Blickenstaff, not the village. Okay, so I'm not writing press releases on behalf of private developers. My job for the village is to promote the village, and we promote development generally. Right? And so Kim Blickenstaff is part of that, as the Hubners are, as Katie Kim is, as Kevin Shields is, as any number of investors in town are. We promote the Heights as a good place to invest. That's what we're promoting, not promoting any specific developer. So if you think that I'm charging the Heights to write a press release for the Atrium Hotel groundbreaking, that would be an error.
Have you written any releases for any publications or worked with any?
I've written stories about Blickenstaff, for example, I wrote a magazine piece on Blickenstaff, for which I was paid by I was paid by Peoria Magazines. I was not paid by Blickenstaff for that. I was not paid by the village for that. I was paid by Peoria Magazines. They wanted a freelance article on the new developer who'd come to town who was spending a lot of money.
I just think that, I mean, a lot of people are on social media or on the computer. In fact, if I do read the Journal-Star, I use my one time a month or whatever it is that they give you for free to read as much as I possibly can, as fast as I can on the Journal-Star. But there even are, you know, I know that a lot of the aging or the older generations don't always get on, you know, the internet. But I also do know that a lot of them do. And I rely a lot on different websites from different locations, whether it's restaurants or towns, or to look up their festivals and what's going on and any information. I mean, just to keep us up on what's going on in other communities, I look at their pages. And we have a really good one that we also pay for, I believe Hat Hook, is that correct? To keep that updated for us. So
I work on that too. We work on a social media presence and contributed things to your Facebook page.
I'm going to say, I mean, if we were interested in having you submit articles to other publications or online publications, you would be willing to do that. You're not
Sure, right.
There's a whole list here.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up as I go along. I do what I'm asked to do, and
sure, no,
yeah.
I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just wondering if our money could be served better in a different way, and maybe something that we need to discuss. So,
well, that's
I apologize it wasn't on the agenda, but
that's a good question. But this was approved in the budget, and this is a trial and error. I mean, so we're going to try a newsletter. We'll know, I think, by feedback from the residents if it's not well received or well read, then it won't continue. And the same thing with these meetings. We want to go out into the neighborhoods and listen to people. And if people don't show up, then I think we'll understand that maybe that didn't work. But there's a whole lot happening here. And the main objective, the only objective, is to listen to the citizens and communicate with them of what's happening here. Because you're right, not everyone reads all these other publications what are listed here. But it's evolving, and we have a story, and we've got a great story to tell, and Mike's job is to help us try and tell that story.
Fundamentally, you know, my client is the Village of Peoria Heights here, and my job, in a sentence, is to help make the village look good. And I think we've done that, frankly. I think you've gotten more positive press in the last 6 to 7 months than you have in decades, frankly. And I used to work at the Journal-Star, so I have a pretty good feel for that. So, anyway.
Okay, well, thank you for the update.
Okay.
We get right into old business. The first is a discussion of ordinance 2019-1596, an ordinance restricting parking on that portion of Euclid Avenue between Kingman Avenue to Park Place in the Village of Peoria Heights. Trustee DeVore, this is your issue. What?
Okay. So we had talked about this at a couple other meetings, and when it was brought up last week, we decided that we wanted to have more conversation about it. So we had complaints from other residents that they felt it was a safety issue for there to be vehicles parked there. We had gone over all of the thoughts of that being a safety issue. Dave from Public Works and some of the other people that work for us were stating also that they felt like it was a public safety issue, but we were going to have more conversation on it tonight. So I don't know who has their first question.
Well, I'd like to make a comment on that. I mean, I do think that it's very hard to get through there, both sides. I mean, I would be in agreement of just doing one side and let them park. And if they have a handicapped person living in their household, can we make it in front of their house stipulate that it's handicap parking only, so only they can park there, and they have to, you guys have a card? Yes? Yeah, that you have to have a card to park in front of their house. I mean, I would be up for that. I don't know about anybody else, but, you know, just to see how it goes with just one side being no parking.
That can all be done, and all I would ask everyone to do is at least have a final draft of this before we send it back to the village board. So if you're not ready to send it back to the board tonight, then I would encourage you to keep working on it. I haven't heard a motion yet to send it to the board, but I don't know if that's something that's open to the other trustees or the trustee over police, if you've thought through what Trustee Carter is saying.
Do we have to send it back to board, or can we vote on it today?
Our practice discussion.
No, we have to send it back to board.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
And
Counsel.
are we going to make any amendments, like Trustee Carter said, of allowing them to have handicap parking in front of their house?
Personally, I would like to see it amended. What is the west side of the street? It's the non-residential? Or is it the east side?
The west.
It'll be the west.
The west side. The west side is the commercial, east side is the residential.
Correct.
Right.
I would like to see it amended, allowing parking on the residential side, unrestricted parking on the residential side. When this ordinance was first brought up, I had some concerns about the effect on the families on the street, especially during holidays. A lot of the properties in the Heights were not designed for multiple vehicles in the driveways. They just aren't. So I worry that if we put the stipulation for handicap parking only when they have family gatherings, which is something, you know, the Heights is known for, that their family would not be able to park outside their personal residence. And I think if we just banned parking on the commercial side, I think that would alleviate some of the congestion on that street.
But how would you think that not putting a handicap in front of their house that they cannot park there? They would be the only ones that, well, I guess not really, because if somebody else comes there, yeah, that's a good idea.
Right.
I was just thinking putting a handicap because they live there. They're the ones that typically park there anyways.
Right.
They're the ones that have all the cars there, so.
Right. And a handicap would allow anyone with a handicap to use that spot.
Right, but I mean, how many typically are really on that live in that residence, for one, that have an actual handicap, and two, I mean, I don't know, I'd say that's few and far between.
Well, I kind of go with the...
My opinion.
Plus, if we start assigning handicap places to that's going to set a precedent. We're going to do it all over the Heights. Somebody's going to want it. If we're going to do anything, have one side for the residents to park on, and just do it on one side, don't do it on both sides. But I don't.
If you have a handicapped person in a wheelchair that can't get up and it's hard to maneuver, and they bring it to us, I mean, hey, they got my vote. I mean, because why would you want them to park 3-4 houses down when you live here and you have a handicapped person. I mean, that's just my thing.
Not only.
I'm just not.
Not only that, Trustee Carter, there are also multiple alternative routes motorists can take to avoid that congestion completely. There are no alternative parking options for these citizens to use outside of their residence. So this ordinance places a greater burden on them than it does anyone else.
From a public works standpoint, one of the issues we have as far as a public works department on that particular area is plowing snow in that area. When we get several inches of snow, we have nowhere to push it, and it pretty much makes that area impassable when it comes to snow plowing. The other thing is if you take the no parking from, if you only put it on one side of the street, let's say you put no parking on the commercial side and you put no parking on the or you put parking allowed or handicap park on the residential side, when that, I think it's a city-linked bus comes and picks up their handicapped child, there's still no room to pass. That bus takes up the whole road. And it's there.
No. We sat out there this weekend and watched
Okay, well,
our trucks and the city.
I will disagree with you. That bus takes up the whole road. You cannot get through that road. The other thing is, I want to make a point on is, this same incident came up several years ago on Glen Elm, and no parking on both sides of the street, the 4800 block, and it works. It's there for a reason, and the no parking on the corner it works. I know Trustee Weisenberg mentioned last meeting about, it's tough to get through on Duryea and a lot of the side streets with the parking. I think what's different about this and the one on Glen Elm, it's the curve, and it works on Glen Elm, and it would work here. So.
Chief Sutton, do we have no parking on both sides of that curve on Glen Elm?
Correct.
We do?
Yes.
It's not as much of a
We'll give you,
area, though.
you've got 5 minutes. Come forward if you would, please.
There are.
If, without objection, I would give her 5 minutes. Okay.
I'm Ellen Tankersley Russell, and I live in that house where you want to cut the parking. If you cut our parking, are we going to park down the street? Are we going to park at the park and make everybody walk to our house? We could do it on one side. We're getting rid of 2 of our vehicles, so there won't be a whole line of vehicles. We're trying to sell them. But let's say Cody and I get a handicap parking sign to park there. So do we make my daughter, who lives there with us, does she have to park down the street? Does my husband, who just had a heart attack? So that's what I'm thinking. We pay taxes here. This is, excuse my mouth is drying out, I'm really sorry. Just get my water.
May I ask you, you're accommodating how many vehicles?
We
have 4 right now. Okay, and you have a driveway though also, right?
Only
one vehicle.
That only holds 1. That would be our family car that we have to take Cody in.
Okay. So he is actually accommodated in your driveway in the handicap capacity, except for...
Yeah, but then I have a vehicle. I mean, I'm handicapped as far as I can walk and not fall to my vehicle, I can drive it. And then Mike has his own, and then our daughter, who's in the Army, she has hers, and sometimes it has to be parked for a while. And I mean, what are you going to take half of us and let us park there, and the other ones, where do they go? And like I said before, we pay taxes here. We lived here 34 years. I've been in the Heights 50 years. I lived on Kingman before that. We want to stay in the Heights. We just want to be left alone. If you guys think it's a hazard, I see where you're coming from. There's never been an accident there. There's never been anything there. And as far as cars coming around there and not getting through, that's bull. Because we're out in our front yard all the time working, and we see people. And nobody's ever come to us and said, could you move your vehicles? They're kind of in the way.
Well, Evelyn, first of all, I appreciate, Ellen, I'm sorry. Appreciate your opinion. My opinion is still the same, that it is a public safety issue. And the other thing is, too, we're not trying to bring a hardship on your family, but It is
It would be.
also my job to look out for the public safety
Oh,
of
I
the
know-
village
I
of
know
Peoria
that.
Heights.
I
So,
understand that.
and the other thing is, too, is, this is also complaint-driven. We have received complaints, and I've also had some of your neighbors come over here and speak with me that they are in favor of that. And I think one of the big things that the police department has to focus on is that, the 48-hour parking has been an issue, and I know that you've talked to some of our officers. We've worked with you as far as moving your cars. And again, going back to that.
In the snow.
That's complaint-driven. Well, not just the snow, but it's complaint-driven. So,
Then why haven't you ever come to us about that?
well, I know that we have. I know
One
that.
time.
Okay.
It was in the winter, and said that we need to move our cars every couple of days so nobody thinks they're abandoned.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there because all of our officers, all the call logs, I've seen them all. This has been a hot topic, more than you know, as far as the complaints that come in. Now,
Then why didn't you come
to
to
be
us?
honest with you, where is this at on our priority list? We have other things that we're doing as well, other than come and tell you to move your cars every 48 hours. But as far as the police department goes, same as Glen Elm. That was a safety issue, complaint-driven. We addressed it. As the police chief, I brought that to this board. This is a public safety issue, and like Mr. Marfell stated, in majority of it is because it's on a curve. That's the big topic. So I think that if it was Duryea or something else, it might be a little different. But that's our stance. That's my stance. But at no time am I trying to bring hardship on your family. That's my
not.
opinion as the police chief. So.
As far as Mr. Marfell, I watched him go up and down the street all weekend, and he didn't have any trouble getting through. So it must not be that much of a hardship.
Okay, anything else?
Nope. Oh, well, you might want to read this. I don't know if it'll help. Can I pass this to you and pass it down? I don't have any more copies. You can keep that.
Thank you. Okay, any more discussion on this? And I'm not hearing anyone taking any action, so
I would like. Are we going to make a motion to do one side for now and relook at it?
well, that's
Or-
up to the trustees.
That's what I'm saying.
As a
What do we-
chair, I would just suggest that you have a consensus, that when we take it to the full board, there are enough of you that support it, and that, what I'm hearing tonight is that I think maybe some of you should work with Chief Sutton and Trustee DeVore and the neighbors to see if we can find a majority of you that support one idea. That's what I would really prefer.
I would actually like to move that we amend ordinance 2019-1596, Section 1, to ban parking only on the west side of the street.
You're making a motion to do that?
Motion to amend.
Okay, so do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Would you like to speak to the motion then?
Just for clarification, isn't the residential side west?
No, the commercial, residential.
Sure we weren't.
Yeah.
Okay. Doing it the opposite side?
Yeah, no, don't get
So
me turned
no
around
parking
here.
along the pump house?
Along the commercial. And as I've stated all along, there are multiple alternative routes that motorists in the Heights can take to avoid this congestion. There are no alternative parking for this family. As I said many times now, the houses in the Heights were designed in an era when families only had one vehicle. Times have changed, and I urge my fellow board members not to consider this ordinance as written, but to amend to ban parking on the west side, allow the residential parking to continue as it always has on the east side. I believe that would negate the public safety issues. It would allow room to move the snow, and it would leave the burden a little less for the citizens along that street.
Okay, thank you.
Would it actually leave room to plow?
Yeah, I would say, I was just thinking, if you did that, that would allow us to push the snow up onto the sidewalk that sits in front of the Chamber Centennial Building, so that would, as far as snow plowing, yeah, that would work, because we come this direction, we have a specific route we do, and we come that direction, that would allow us to push. Right now, we can't, because those vehicles are parked there. If they're not there, we can push it off up into the sidewalk, or up off the curb, so that would work, as far as snow plowing.
And I'm not trying to be difficult, I just want to make sure that our actions here on the board don't harm the citizens of that street. I think we can achieve the safety and achieve their ability to park in front of their house.
I appreciate you trying to find a solution. Let's see what the other trustees think. Anyone else want to?
I would support that.
I would too.
Me too.
Okay, so so Trustee Weisenberg, I would ask you to include in your amendment that this be sent to the full board as amended for final action. Is that okay?
Yes.
And is that, I forget who made the second?
I did.
Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
All right, so on the motion as amended to send back to the full board for final action, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal?
Aye.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Okay, so that goes, excuse me, summer cold. That goes back to the final the village board meeting. Trustee Carter, did you have you wanted to update us on our old business?
Yeah, I would like to, since it's under a really old business and it's not on here, I would like to have Mike Casey, wherever he's at, to come up and give us all an update on the seal coating on Prospect and what the time frame is, what we're doing each day, and keep people.
All right, yeah, last time I didn't get my name's Mike Casey, the street superintendent. Last time I didn't get, we had so much going on to go with what we were doing. So today, as you all know, we did seal coat Prospect. We're going to let it sit till Friday. Then we're going to do a fog coat, which is like a tar. We spray one way, wait an hour, spray the other way, wait another hour, and it binds it together a lot better. So it's going to be a little bit of messed up in the traffic till Friday, and then hopefully Tuesday, weather permitting and stuff, we can get everything striped and everything done. So just bear with us right now, and then we'll get everything put back to order with our street seats and stuff like that. So, and we also did Montclair Court, and Humboldt too, seal coating. So, but that's where we're standing right now, and everything seems good, and the weather's been good. It cooled off finally, so we're good to go.
Spray that stuff on there, can cars drive on that?
No, they got to stay off it for an hour, yeah. So we're going to have people stationed and do it in sections when they do the fog coat. So just to keep them off, and we're going to do it probably 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday. Yep. So that way there'll be no traffic. This morning, came in at 4 o'clock this morning and got started on it. So yeah, so Friday will be 1 o'clock, so we should be done, dry, and out of there. So then after that, we can go with the striping Tuesday, I hope. So that's where we're sitting on the seal coating, so.
Thank you both for that. Any questions?
And you're going to pick up the rocks, right, before?
Yeah, we're going to do a light sweeping Thursday, so we'll have no parking again in front of the businesses and stuff, just a light sweeping to get the excess rock before we do put the fog coat down, so I forgot to mention that.
Thank you.
Thanks to your folks for having Tower Park looking so good. It looks fantastic. A real quick update on what Summer Help's been doing and what they're working on.
Yeah, Summer helped out a lot so far. They've been cutting grass. Dave's had them do a few different things too. I mean, they're painting hydrants now, so the hydrants are looking good. We painted the garbage cans before I get new ones. That's my next mission. I want to get new ones. But anyway, we painted those and kind of spiffed up Prospect, the whole area, Tower Park, and what's her name that takes care of? Tanya, that takes care of the flowers and everything's got them really looking good. So everything's running smooth, so we should be good there. So that's how
Getting rave reviews on social media about how the flowers are.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's been lots of comments.
and
How great the flowers are.
yeah, so
okay,
looking good.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, anything else under old business? On to new business. The first is police. Trustee DeVore, code enforcement update.
Okay, in front of you, you have our typical handouts for our code enforcement update. The first one is the month-to-date for July, and then the second one will be our year-to-date. This month, we did 113 notices. 81 of those complied. 4 of them did receive an abate sticker, and 31 are pending. Any questions on that before?
No?
And then the landlord registration is your third page. So we did do 19 inspections this month. 19 of them had minor violations, only 1 failed inspection, and then we have 1 pending. Moving right along with that as well. Thank you.
Okay, keep going.
We have a vehicle purchase. We have a vehicle purchase update. So we are getting 2 black and white Dodge Chargers for patrol cars. We're trading 1 car that we currently have in, These we get on a state bid, so we do not have to bid out a price on those. It just is what it is for that. This is consistent with our 5-year purchase plan and was completely budgeted in. It was a budgeted item, and we should receive the invoice for that this week to update the entire board with it. I did want to remind everybody that on July 29th at 6:30 here in Village Hall, we will have our neighborhood watch meeting. And then we also just need to talk, we have an action item for the approval of training in the amount of $4,000. This is for staff and command. This is going to be administration training, which Officer Ahart does have to go through. We're lucky this is offered to him online, when typically he would have to go somewhere and take it, so we are saving money by not having to pay for travel and hotel and accommodations with that, and it will be done through the University of Northwestern.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Oh, I'd like a motion to approve.
Okay, do you have a second?
I second.
All right, I do. Any discussion on that motion? Is there anything else, Dustin, on that motion?
No, nothing on that motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Marisko.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Trustee DeVore, you still have the floor?
That's all I have today.
Anything?
I just have one thing for Trustee Mariskow. As far as the parking on Glen Elm, it's only on the west side, not the east side.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
That's what I thought, because I'm like, okay, people are still parking there. But I think just the one side has helped tremendously, believe me. I did have a question on the landlord registration. On these ones that failed the inspection, how long do we give them to get that back, get it up to where it should be?
It depends on the severity. If it's failed for some minor issues, a lot of times the landlord will contact, us, and we will go right back out the next day if it's something minor. If it's something major, they have 60 days that we'll come back and re-inspect. So.
Okay. I was just wondering, like, if there was black mold or something,
Right.
how long do they have to get that cleaned up? Okay.
That would be a major then, right?
Yeah, major.
Okay.
That's a major.
All right, anyone else under, any further questions for police? We would be at economic development. The first item is approval of the use of Village Hall on August 21st for St. Jude Home Breakfast Meeting. Trustee Kazan, I'd ask for a motion to approve that.
I make a motion to approve this.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I do. Go right ahead.
I don't think there's a representative in the audience tonight to discuss this, so it's fairly self-explanatory. It's St. Jude would like to hold an informational meeting and breakfast for the construction donors at Village Hall on August 22nd. This is for the St. Jude Dream Home on Samuel.
And your intent is to approve this tonight, not send it to the board?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Marisko.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Okay, next. Approval of use of Tower Park for Walk MS on Sunday, September 8th. Trustee Kazan.
I make a motion to approve this. This is an annual event, and I do think we
Can I
have...
get a second?
I second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Got ahead of myself.
Go ahead.
I do think we have a representative in the audience tonight, at least.
Please come forward, sir. Tell us a little bit about your event.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees. My name is Brian Gorsuch with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. Our event's going to be held September 8th up at Junction City. This will be the festival site. We'd like to use Tower Park as our turnaround point. Let's see, I think we need some space for 2 or 3 folding tables and 10 or 15 chairs to set up at the base of the pavilion along Prospect Road, as well as 1 ADA accessible, 1 regular portalette, unless access to indoor restrooms is granted. I have attached a proposed route map for your convenience. In addition, below is more information about the multiple sclerosis and our walk event.
Anything else, Beth?
That's it.
Good luck with your walk. I hope it's very successful, and thanks for choosing the Heights.
Thank you. Thank you, Board.
All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Marisko.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
All right, next, ordinance 2019-1599, an ordinance creating additional Class A1 liquor licenses within the corporate limits of the Village of Peoria Heights. Trustee Kazan would ask for a motion to approve that.
I make a motion to approve this.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, go right ahead.
So we are looking at two A1 liquor licenses, one for the Betty Jane Performing Arts Center and one for the previous No Wake Zone on Galena Road, which will now become the Riverside Tap. An A1 liquor license is a full bar without a specific food requirement. And both of these entities have already met with the village, and they feel comfortable with what they're requesting, so.
Are the Massey's here tonight? I don't see them. Oh, there you are. You want to come forward and tell us about your intent? We're excited to see some activity back in that building again.
Hi, my name's Lisa Massey. My husband and I purchased a No Wake Zone from Abraham Amusements 2 years ago. We tried half-heartedly to try to sell out the business to keep the building, to rent it out ourselves. But now we start a new corporation and we're going to run the bar ourselves, and we're hoping to get the liquor license since it's expired, and then get a gaming license and go from there.
Thank you.
And it's all ready to go inside. Nothing. I mean, we did some improvements. We built a bar like in front of the window so you can look out over onto the river, and did some painting and new furniture fixtures in there.
Thank you. Good luck to you. Jenny Parkhurst, are you here tonight? Anyone from the Betty Jane? Okay. Anything else, Trustees Kazam, on this?
No, nothing.
Discussion on these, on the motion?
My only question is, how many do we currently have? Is it 9? 8. And then this would take us up to 10 then. Are we going to make a limit on how many we're going to, of this type of liquor license, or we're just?
Well, that's a policy decision. Excuse me. I mean, this is driven by interest, so there's an interest in these businesses and to have a license, so we're bringing it to you for your approval. I could see us, based on what we know and other interested people in the village, there could be more.
Okay.
I would prefer not to see us cap in advance of knowing what type of business wants to come to us in the village. I think it's better to look at these on a case-by-case basis.
I think so too. I think Peoria just did that with one that they turned down. But yeah, I agree. I think we should. I was thinking we had a limit on it, and I couldn't remember.
There is a limit, so we're asking you to increase the
up
limit
it.
tonight, and this resolution would do so, correct, Council?
Just that's the standard with liquor licenses. The state statute empowers the mayor as the liquor commissioner, and the board decides how many licenses are available, and the mayor rules on applications for those licenses. So we always, as a village, our policy is we keep the number of available licenses at the number that are actually issued. So we never really have an extra license available. When we get an applicant, then we come to the board and say, hey, we've got these applicants just like we did tonight, and so we want to increase the number of available licenses so we can issue them to those specific applicants. It really gives the board a
If a
feel
business were to go out of business, then would
we
would we
reduce
have
the
to
number of
decrease that?
available.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, we would reduce the number of available licenses.
Gotcha. Okay.
My policy would be, Trustee Mariscal, if people come and apply for a license, to bring them for you for either approval or denial.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So what's the definition of an A1 liquor license? Did we cover that?
It's a straight license. It doesn't have any, like an A2, it's got 33%, has to come from food sales.
Okay.
And A1 does not.
So it's consumption on premise?
Yes, correct.
Actually, Council, maybe you could speak to this, because she mentioned that down at the No Wake Zone, there will be gambling, is that what you said? And so I think along with that, there is an integral or requirement of food. Is that correct for the Village of Peoria Heights, or is that only a Peoria zoning
I think
ordinance?
that might just be Peoria.
Okay.
The state requirement for a gaming license is that you have a liquor license for on-premise consumption, and that could be with or without food.
It's not like a 20% or 25% food requirement?
No, that's a city of Peoria.
Yeah, I think that was something the city enacted.
Wasn't it that one that used to be Pizza Hut that we gave them the gaming and the liquor license for? I thought they had to serve a certain amount of food there.
That could be because they have an A2 license.
Okay.
A2 is like a restaurant license, restaurant bar.
They did have an A, but in 2017, I just checked on this today, and they dropped to a B. So it's just beer, what did you say?
Beer and wine.
Beer and wine on the video. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee DeVore. Aye. Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazim.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Excuse me, that passes. Next, Resolution 2019-5, a resolution approving the sale of a vacant lot located at 4804 Ellen Court. Trustee Kazam,
I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
and a second?
A second.
Okay, go ahead, Beth.
Okay, this is a property that the village obtained ownership through a demolition order of an unsafe structure. It's at 4804 Ellen Court, which is right off of Glen up here, I think west of the library, right? And the village has owned the property for about 1.5 years. The owner of the adjacent property approached the village and would like to purchase it as it's adjacent to the property that he currently owns. The village is able to engage in a direct sale to the resident by selling it at 80% of its appraised value. And as an alternative, we could put it out for public bid, but I guess my recommendation would to be seriously consider this offer. It actually was under contract previously, and they were unable to purchase the property because they couldn't get financing. So I think this is a good case of a bird in the hand type of issue.
Anything else, Council?
Nope, she accurately summarized it.
Okay.
Council, does that state 2 addresses then, or does that become then 1 if the owner of the...
If they're going to build an accessory structure on it, they're going to need to make it 1 lot.
Okay.
And then it would have 1 address. Right now, it's 2 addresses, but the current address would disappear and
So if they didn't do that, would we be taxing them on both properties?
either way, we're taxing them on both properties. It's either 1 big lot or 2 small lots.
It's just if they don't combine the addresses, they'll get more than 1 tax bill from...
Correct. But then if they're only going to have a garage on it, they need to combine it with the other lot. You can't just have a lot that has nothing but a garage on it. It's got to have a residence.
Yeah, and the reason he's doing it is because the garage he has is falling apart. And as ordinances are now, he can't put a garage on his lot. This will just benefit him and want you to take care of it instead of having a vacant lot.
Why do we sell it at 80% of its value?
What was the question?
Why do we sell it at 80% of its value?
Those are the 2 options, either advertise or or sell 80% of the appraised value.
We could go above the 80%. The problem is that we had already agreed to sell it to someone that offered the 80% value, and then their deal fell through, so it's kind of hard then when somebody else expresses an interest to say, but for you, we want more. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Trustee Weisenberg.
No, that was
I think
a
we
great-
made a policy decision on this, and simply because, I want to get these properties back on the tax rolls and have a useful purpose. It could have, you could choose to put it out for request for proposals, but we just felt that this neighbor came up and approached us and said he was interested, he's the adjacent landowner, purchasing the property, improving the property. That's why we brought it to you this way. Normally, we probably would do it differently. And incidentally, I don't want to get too far off topic tonight, but we do have a lot of properties in the village portfolio that are vacant, and we have had some discussions with people who are interested in those properties. So we have a demand exists out there for property and homes in the village, and that's something we need to talk about, because I think that maybe we package those all together, or we could package them individually, but it would be nice to have someone who has the expertise and the experience in development to come in and take them all off our hands. But those are things for us to get into later, but I want to make you aware that that's out there. Okay, anyone else on this topic? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazim.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Okay. Trustee Kazam, you still have the floor. Anything else?
No, thank you, that's everything.
Okay, next administration. Trustee Gett, before we get to the action item, I've asked council to bring something to your attention that came to my attention recently.
And this is an item that's not on the agenda. It's probably miscellaneous business, but it also falls under administration, so it's appropriate to discuss it here. I was asked by Administrator Sutton a few weeks back to look at the issue of our village clerk, who has occupied the office of treasurer up until, you know, the point where she ran for clerk, and now, since the election, has been serving as the clerk. And I was asked to look at the question about her serving those roles as well as a full-time employee. As everybody knows, she's been the village bookkeeper for, I don't know how long, several years. And so in looking at that, it's a very common practice. You can serve as a full-time employee for a municipality while you serve as an officer. And then trustee Mariscal asked the more specific question about the two offices, because the village clerk is an office, as is the village treasurer position. Those are two offices, and that is something that actually cannot happen at the same time. One person cannot simultaneously hold two offices. So we wanted to inform you of that, and I'll be talking with the clerk about, you know, having run for clerk, she has disqualified herself from serving as the trustee. I think it's fair. Treasurer, I mean. So I think it's fair to leave the choice up to her if she resigns the clerk position or the treasurer position. So I'll be having that discussion with her, but you can't hold both at once. So we will be addressing that, and we'll certainly let the board know the outcome.
Any questions for council?
I just really would have appreciated hearing that from you, Administrator. That's all I have to say. Because I know that you knew that that was a big deal to me. I didn't feel it was right. I thought something was wrong. I had investigated it myself. That's all I have to say. I really wish that you had reached out to me and let me know that before this moment.
Well, my response to that, Trustee Mariscal, is that's why we have legal counsel, and I didn't know the answer to your question. Therefore, that's why I passed it on to legal counsel.
Okay, next is an action item, appeal by William and Jennifer Donarski from the Zoning Board of Appeals, denial of application for fence variance for property located at 4415 North Miller, Peoria Heights. Trustee Gett, I'd ask you for a motion.
So moved.
But you need, if you'd clarify the motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Uphold the decision, either uphold or deny the decision of the.
Well, let's go with approving their appeal, and so we can discuss this.
Okay, the motion is to approve the appeal.
Which would be to reverse the decision of the ZBA.
Is there a second?
Just to be clear.
I second.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Gett.
Okay, as everybody's pretty much familiar with, William and Jennifer Donarski put up a fence, had a fence put up, and their contractor didn't come and get a building permit. And also, this fence goes too far to the north and to the east, and it's in the easement. The ZBA said for them to, I guess, tear it down. I'm open for discussion on this. I've been by it. I don't see where there's obstruction. I've heard other people from the neighborhood say the same thing. My recommendation is have them move it back off the easement. I mean, if that's not, but that's my recommendation. I mean,
well, but you would need to amend your motion. Your motion
I'll
is.
make a motion to have them move it back. I want to get a discussion going. So,
just so we understand your motion, so your motion is to.
Let's leave it as it is right here, so we can have a discussion that approve their appeal on it, and then we can add any.
Okay, before we do that, Council, would you explain how this began, what action the ZBA took, and what our job here tonight is?
Absolutely. I think it's important everybody understand what the rules are at play, so that the board, especially as you're making a decision, what are the parameters within which you're being asked to make that decision. Obviously, the history of this comes to you from the ZBA. So the ZBA conducted a hearing. I think there's no, dispute that the Donarskis were unaware that the zoning ordinance required that they obtain a permit before they build a fence in the front yard. And actually, this is a corner yard, which is unique. There's specific rules for corner yards. And so not only do you have a front yard fence, but you also have a corner lot that has its own requirements. So when they learned about that, they came to the ZBA, asked for the variance. The ZBA conducted its hearing. Tessie Buckler, explained how the ZBA ruled, and that's consistent with my memory of how they ruled, but effectively denied the variance. So at this point, in the absence of an appeal, the Donarskis would have to remove the fence altogether. So they've appealed that ruling, and what they're effectively asking is to be able to leave the fence where it is. At the ZBA hearing, the issue was raised about, does it obstruct the view of the intersection? And if my memory serves me, I don't have the minutes in front of me, but the way I recall, they did offer, and they'll be able to speak to this if I'm wrong, to move the fence back, as was suggested. But I think before we go on, I want everybody to understand a couple of things. One, any requirement in our zoning code is subject to the variance procedure. So there is no requirement, whether it's building height, setback, any of the zoning requirements can be varied if you go to the ZBA and apply a variance. So even though there are very strict requirements for front yard fences and there are strict requirements for corner lot visibility, the ZBA and the zoning ordinance, which it comes to you on appeal, variances can be granted. But you need to know what the standards are for a variance. So I wanted to go through that. The ZBA members, Trustee DeVore has been on the ZBA, so this is very familiar to her. But the standards for a variance, to grant a variance, the ZBA and then on appeal, this board have to find that the strict application of the terms of the zoning code to a particular property will impose practical difficulties or a particular hardship on the petitioner. So you need to consider the property itself. It's not a situation that the owner created. It's their property, the way it is configured, shaped, and where the improvements are. You have to be able to find that if a variance is granted, that the property affected by the variance will remain in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning code. You would have to find that the approval of the variance will not merely serve as a convenience to the property owner, but is necessary to alleviate some demonstrable hardship. Okay? And then you have to find that the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. So you got to consider the interest of the public as a whole, not just the property owner or the immediately surrounding properties. And then you have to find that the variance can be approved without impairing the general purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. And then last, there are all of the factors. You have to find that it would be consistent with all of the factors in our fence ordinance. And I'll just read those because these are the factors that really apply to this consideration. You have to consider the input of surrounding property owners and residents regarding compliance with the standards set forth in the fence section. You have to consider the compatibility of the proposed fence, considering its placement, height, construction, the surrounding neighborhood, the impact on use and enjoyment of neighboring properties. You have to consider whether the fence will impair the safety, welfare, light, air, whether it will diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood, impair natural drainage or create drainage issues to adjacent properties. And then finally, you have to consider whether the fence will alter the established character of the neighborhood. So those are all of the things that you need to consider. And again, variances can be granted, but you need to consider this request in light of those criteria. I'm not trying to influence your decision. I don't have a vote. I don't have a position on this. I just want everybody to know what criteria they're applying, and you apply the same criteria that the zoning board applies. So with that, open it to discussion.
Before we do that, I'm going to allow the appellants, if they'd like 5 minutes to state your case. Yes, sir. And then if there's, allow the other side, but not everyone. So if the other side can agree on a spokesperson, I'll give you 5 minutes after Mr. Donarski speaks.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I want to apologize for not following the proper procedure and not verifying our property lines before starting this project. That was very naive of me. The ordinance, as I understand it, is no front yard fences without a variance, not no front yard fences, period. I understand that I need a variance to install a front yard fence, and I completely support that process. As soon as it was brought to my attention, I came down to the village office to see what I needed to do. I thought my fence contractor, Dave Soderman, did the due diligence, and he thought his partner had done the due diligence, so that's what got us here tonight. I'm basically asking for a do-over. If approved, I will have a proper survey done. We're asking for a variance based on a hardship to install a fence on our property line. Our hardship is the lack of a backyard on the property. We're a dog owner. I travel for work, leaving my wife home alone. My wife's not always able to walk the dog because she has an anxiety condition that ramps up when I'm gone overnight. My wife's here tonight. She's getting upset, so I'll just... an invisible fence or a lead, it's not a good option because that really doesn't protect our dog. So we've just got a new puppy. The dog that we had earlier, our little Yorkie, we had to have her put down here in the last couple of weeks, but we've since gone out, because, again, with my being gone, my wife needs a companion animal, and so that's why we have a dog at all. The fence is decorative and is 80% transparent. We don't believe it obstructs motor vehicle, we don't believe it obstructs vision. When I went before the board, the zoning board, I was kind of blindsided. I wasn't aware of all the opposition to this fence. My understanding was I was coming in to get a variance based on a hardship, and I just needed to make that case, and I thought I made a good case. But then I have neighbors that oppose the fence, and that's, that's their right, of course. But I just want to, so I would like to provide that they had 12 neighbors and 7 households that signed a petition against my fence. I have 20 neighbors in the same neighborhood from 13 households that support the Donarski's application for a variance to install a fence on their property line at the corner of North Miller Avenue and East Moneta Avenue. And so, again, I will have a proper survey done. I'll put the fence where, where it needs to be. Then this kind of, I believe this is where my property lines are now, and I'm over them. And that was, again, I made a lot of mistakes, and I really do apologize. As far as the sight line goes, here, the fence is practically transparent. It's easy to see through the fence. I just don't see that as a legitimate argument. That's my opinion. So my neighbors, I didn't have an opportunity at the zoning board meeting. My neighbors had 7 points that they presented through a third party. They used that to spare us our feelings. They didn't want to make us feel alienated in the neighborhood, and I appreciate that. So their first point was its contrast to the character of the neighborhood. They're entitled to that opinion, but that opinion is not shared by everyone in the neighborhood as evidenced by our petition. They said the front yard fence should not be granted the front yard fence should not be granted if they should adhere to the setback, so the setback argument, I'm going to move it back to my property lines. I don't believe that's going to be an issue. They were concerned about the precedence of having a front yard, if you grant this front yard fence, we're just going to have front yard fences all over the place. But clearly the process is you have to come before the board, which I didn't do, and I apologize, to get the variance. And so I don't see, if you were to grant me my variance, the next person's going to have to come and make a case for their variance, obviously, right? And that's why we have this procedure in place. It says it's an invitation to leave dogs outside was another one of their points, but I don't see where that's a valid argument, because an invisible fence, a dog on a lead could leave them outside. The spacing is not adequate to contain a small dog. It's irrelevant at this point. We have a lab now. But our Yorkie couldn't fit through the fence either. It was a specious argument. tend to become a maintenance issue. I maintain my yard. That's not an issue. And then the sightline issue, and like I say, I just don't see where there's a sightline issue. That's my case.
All right, well, thank you. If one person from the other side, I'll give you 5 minutes, Dan. Thank you. And then, just so we understand the rules here, then I'll come back to you, sir, for 2 minutes to rebut him, and I'll give you another 2 after that. Go ahead, Dan.
Question for Mark. Is a petition signed by a neighbor, is the rule of thumb in the ordinance that it has to be within 200 or 250 feet?
For some things, special uses and things, there is a specific 200 feet
So unless they're
requirement.
within 250 feet, they really don't have a say?
Well, to the extent one of the factors is the character of the neighborhood, what the surrounding neighbors think, arguably it has some weight.
Right.
So, and it doesn't specifically exclude that, but, your point is taken.
And go over again what a hardship is versus convenience?
Well, it's just that, and, as I said, the hardship has to be associated with the property as it's found. And a convenience is just, I would like a fence.
That's correct.
Not that I need a fence, or the way my property is situated isn't different than others, so.
Correct. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to respond to that, sir? You got 2 minutes.
I would just, again, I would just point out that my property doesn't have anywhere else for me to put a fence, so that's part of the hardship, that my wife issue and all of that, but there's nowhere else for a fence on the property.
Okay. And in closing, anything else from this? All right. Now, trustees, we're open for discussion.
I have lots of questions.
I do too.
Go ahead.
Start? Okay, so my first question is, the address is Miller. There's no front door on Miller. So what does that do with the variance on Miller? I don't care about Moneta, I'm just talking about Miller right now.
That does confuse things because the door faces Moneta, but the address is Miller. From a legal perspective, I don't think it makes any difference. You're to judge these criteria, it's a corner lot.
Right.
Whether it faces Miller or Moneta, it's a corner lot. So the rules are now, the measurements, how you would come up with what would qualify, under the corner visibility criteria and things, might change if it was a Moneta address as opposed to a Miller address, but the public safety question, the visibility questions don't change with whether it's a Moneta or Miller address. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that point. It's really this site as it's situated, does that create risks to pedestrians, traffic in the area, and so forth.
Okay, so really just kind of want to make a comment. I've lived here for over 30 years, never been down Miller Road Avenue, whatever it's called, since I've lived here. I went down there to see this talk about the fence. So I'm going down, I go down Grandy Drive, go down Miller, left side, the houses, they're beautiful. Kudos to you guys that can afford those houses and make it beautiful. Go down the right side, your fence is a lot better than half the fences that are on the right side. So as far as the fence goes, their black wrought iron fence looks nice. It looks nice to your home. It fits into the community that you're in right there. The only thing that I would say is that we have to get you compliant with the fence. If it needs to be brought back to the variance, whatever it needs to be, then my vote is for that. Not to get rid of the fence, but to make it compliant with the variance codes.
Okay, next.
Okay, so I was just looking at this drawing, and what I guess is I'm to assume that from where this sits right here, this is going to come back quite a ways.
Yes,
is that right? I too went over there because I wanted to see what the whole fuss was about. And I'm not sure, like if I'm facing your house on Miller, who the neighbor is to the left, but I did pull in their driveway. because one of the complaints was that you can't see when you're trying to pull out of the driveway through this fence. So this kind of a fence sort of plays an optical illusion on your eyes. And so when I pulled in their driveway and I was backing out and I was looking at that intersection, it looked like the whole fence had gone completely black altogether. And I couldn't see if there was a car sitting there at that stop sign. But I'm also wondering if this comes back far enough, if at that time the people that live on that other side would be able to see, obviously, a car that was at that stop sign. But the way it is now, I agree, at least for the person, your neighbor on this side, yeah, I had to pull like almost my whole entire vehicle out to be able to get that optical illusion of that fence.
I believe it's got to come 6 foot both ways, both off Miller and
6 foot this way and 6 foot in? Okay. So I just wanted to point that out, that when they're saying that there's a difficulty seeing through that fence, even though it looks really easy to see through, depending on where you are or what angle you're at, that fence does turn completely black. It's almost like there's black panels up there, and I don't know if it's just because of the angle you're at or not. But I definitely would agree that this needs to come off of Heights property and back onto yours. That's really, I just wanted to point that out to everybody, that you can definitely see that there is an obstruction there.
Just to be clear, you mentioned 6 feet, Diane, so this right here is where the fence is currently, and the idea is, or the proposal by the owner, is to move it 6 feet, or is it to move it further so that it's flush with your house on Moneta?
On Moneta, it will be flush with the house, yeah. At 6 foot, we'll put it flush with the house, pretty much.
Okay, you still have the floor, Trustee Mariscal.
Okay, no, you're fine. Okay, so then this will come out like at the side of right on the side of your house?
Correct.
And then come out and then go over, and then the other side too, will that be flush with the back of the house? I'm confused because when I look at the house, I think it's on Moneta instead of on Miller.
Yeah,
but
no, I understand.
So
right now it's flush with the house on the south side of the house. It's already flush with the house. It's 6 foot, no, 12 foot.
It's 12 foot.
It's 12 foot
That
off.
was what was confusing
It's 12
me.
foot off. I was going to bring it 6 foot in, so it would still be 6 foot off of the house itself. It'll be, because I've got landscaping and all of that that's right there, so it'll be 12, right now it's only 6 foot off of Moneta, it'll be 12 foot off of Moneta. I mean, I can move it in further if that's what, if it's necessary, but, yeah, but, and then 6 foot closer from Miller to the house.
Okay.
Right now it's sitting at 12 foot, and I have to wait until I have my survey done, but I speculate that my property line is 18 foot off of Moneta, which is a lot, but it is what it is.
In looking at GIS, it looks to be about that far.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have one last question for council. Had Mr. Donarski done things the way he should have and come in and asked for a variance, and I know this is kind of a crazy question, but if he had, would he have met the criteria to be able to get that fence? I mean, even if the neighbors had come in and complained and said, we do not want that fence there.
So that's a trick question in a way, because you can't put a fence up without a variance. So no one meets the criteria. You have to have a variance to do a front yard fence.
They don't meet the criteria, that's why they're asking for the variance.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay, so I misunderstood.
Now there are standards for fences and there are standards for corner lots that you should meet, but yet any provision in the zoning code can be varied if the circumstances dictate. So at the end of the day, it's up to the decision, from the facts as you find them. This property is different from every other property, and because of the way this property is situated, create a hardship.
Okay, that would be all I had.
All right, thank you. We can go right down the road.
Sure, yeah. Obviously, we've looked at this property numerous times. These are probably thinking people are circling their house all the time. I think council is right. The idea of a variance is put in place for just this type of situation, and I really am sympathetic to the neighbors that are concerned about it as well. It does put us in a little bit of a difficult position to not have a survey in front of us because we're guessing at exactly where your property line is. In my opinion, if we were to grant the variance on Moneta, it should be flush with the house on Moneta. And this is just my own personal opinion. Certainly, we cannot allow anything in the public right-of-way. And I definitely think we would need a survey in order to figure out exactly where your property line is along Miller.
Of course.
So those are my, and then also, this is probably obvious, but people need to know that you're required to have a permit. I know I've been in your position too, Mr. Donarski. Actually, I've had firsthand experience with this. We put in a basketball court, we had to take it out and move it. So I'm sympathetic to that, but he would still have to apply for a permit and pay for a permit.
Oh, yeah, the variance
We're not waiving any of that.
preliminary to a permit, correct.
And which would also require a site plan and would also require a survey in order, we could make our motion contingent on the acceptance of those things, but those things need to be in front of us.
Yeah, you wouldn't even really need to make it contingent because all those other requirements are still required.
Okay.
The variance just lets you put a fence where otherwise no permit, would ever be allowed.
Okay.
You got to first clear that zoning hurdle before you get the building permit.
Okay.
Are you done, Trustee Kazim?
Yes, for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Gett, you've already spoken. Let's go to Trustee Weisenberg. We'll come back to you if you want to, Jeff, after.
I agree. My support would be contingent on the fence being moved back to the property line and a land survey completed so that we can ensure that the fence does not sit on the public right-of-way. So I think as long as those conditions are met, the land survey is done, the fence is moved back to the property line, I don't really have any concerns.
Sarah?
Okay, so in the ordinance, it says that the setback should be a minimum of 10 feet off the property line. What is the reason? Why do we want it 10 feet off the property line?
As you recall from zoning discussions, it's, I wasn't around when that requirement was made. And one other thing to understand, this ordinance has changed twice in the last 5 years. It was changed in 2014, it was changed again in 2016. So that's before my time. Unfortunately, I wasn't around. I can't speak for what the ZBA and then the village board was thinking with that, but in general, if you're going to have a front yard fence, I think the thinking is you want it to sit back. Some people would argue just the opposite, that if you're going to have a front yard fence, you want it up by the sidewalk. So I can't speculate as to what the thinking was back then.
So Mr. Donarski, the way it looks on GIS, the flush with the house on the Moneta side looks like that's where your property line is. So are you asking to move the fence on the Miller side straight to your property line or with the 10-foot setback?
Straight to my property line.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? So we have the motion. And Madam Clerk, would you read back the motion?
Yep, the motion, as Jeff made it, hold on, let me scroll up. Trustee Gett just made a motion
I just made the
for the
motion
appeal
to
with no
approve it as
amendments.
is.
As is.
Appeal.
So council, would you like to?
That's all I did, but I don't have a problem with making an amendment to it.
Council, do you want this amended to do it right?
I think if I sense the flavor of the board, what's been discussed is an amendment to your motion that would reverse the ZBA's ruling to deny the variance and grant the variance conditioned upon the fence being moved to even with the corner of the house on the Moneta side and on no farther than the property line on the Miller side, subject to a survey to verify where the property line is.
Borne by the appellant and all costs borne by the appellant.
Correct. And if I misstated anybody's,
No, that's kind of what I was...
That's just my interpretation.
That's what I was picking up, that let them move it back, and they're going to have a site plan and get that appraised and, before we approve it. But I believe that's the contingency. So I have no problem making that amendment to this.
You made the original motion, so I'd prefer someone else make the amendment.
Okay.
I move that we amend, is there a resolution number to that one?
it's not a resolution, so you're just amending the motion to reverse the ZBA ruling.
I move that we reverse the ZBA denial of the variance.
You need to add an amendment, because what I did was make a motion to approve the appeal. So he needs to make an amendment to what I made about the...
Correct.
So you need to amend my motion. My motion was, I said, let's approve the appeal. So you need to add an amendment to...
I move that we amend Trustee Gett's motion to stipulate that the fence must be moved to the property line on Miller and flush with the house on Moneta.
And that movement would be, based on a survey.
Pending a survey.
Okay, let me get...
That's exactly right.
Let me get you're comfortable with that amendment?
I'm comfortable that states what the discussions were.
Okay, so is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay. Now on the motion as amendment, just the amendment. Anyone want to talk about the amendment?
We already discussed.
So I just have one question. So what we're about to vote on is that we're saying to the zoning board and to the owner of the home that he can have the fence, correct? As long as he meets all of the requirements that we're setting forth as far as having the land surveyed and that the fence be put where we're saying that it needs to be put, correct?
Yes, that was my
With the
motion.
house
Yes.
and
Yes.
back out of the right-of-way. Am I right?
Correct.
But I think for
Yeah, so-
just making the motion and
Just to be
approving that
clear, that is reversing what the ZBA ruled.
So we're going to
Okay,
vote
so
on
if he
his
does not
amendment.
meet those, if he does not meet those requirements by having that done, then he has to take the fence down, correct? I mean, like if it,
I think he has to take the fence down either way.
Either way, the fence comes...
either way, it has to come
Yeah,
down.
the fence is coming down. It's a question of if he puts it back up where it would be placed.
Move the fence, essentially.
Is there a time limit on this? Like, what kind of timing does he have to get this completed?
I didn't hear it, the time frame, but if you want to add 30, 60, 90 days, the chair is open to that, but Council, what are your thoughts?
That's totally the prerogative of the board.
I do think that we should include that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just like leave it hanging, like
No.
you have to do this, but even this time next year, we
Well,
don't have to.
rather than get a third amendment, I'd look back to Trustee Weisenberg and ask him if he's agreeable to that, to include that in his amendment.
The whole thing.
I've already forgotten it.
Can you just have a time limit?
Yes, so I move, do I have to do the whole thing over again?
No, just say add 60 days to it or something.
Add 60 days to it.
Is that agreeable to the person? I don't know who made the second on that, but is... Okay. Okay, so we're on the amendment. Anyone else on the amendment? Madam Clerk, call the roll on the amendment.
Trustee DeVore. Aye. Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Now we are back to the main motion as amended. Anyone else need to chime in on that? Madam Clerk?
Trustee DeVore. Aye. Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
All right, so that passes. We would be at miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous business to come for the board? Hearing none. Trustee Gett?
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.